Hello and welcome to another amazing, stupendous, I don't know, fantastical episode of Pittsburgh Sports Memories. I'm your co-host Steve Wirt. As usual, I'm joined by
I'm Tim Hannon. And Steve, you know what? I was just thinking, fantastic is one of those words that people don't use enough anymore. I feel like that's kind of faded.
yes, ever since the Fantastic Four movie flopped. The
Is
first
that
one
what
did
did it?
okay. Yeah,
Okay. What
I
about
mean,
terrific? That's another one you never hear anymore.
terrific, fantabulous. You
Yeah, fantabulous.
know,
Well, this podcast is all the above, as Steve said.
yes, I was kind of trying to get into my channel, my inner PT Barnum, but I digress. On this episode, we're gonna, discuss much like Frank Costanza. If you're a Seinfeld fan and you remember Festivus, the made-up holiday, there was a portion of that holiday called the Feats of Strength, and Festivus couldn't be over until George pinned his father. So, unlike that, we will be just reliving amazing feats of athleticism by Pittsburgh athletes in various situations. Some you probably have heard of over and over again, and some you may not have heard of before. But they still continue to impress us, and so listen along and let's all enjoy these amazing athletic talents of Pittsburgh sports players in Pittsburgh sports history. First up, I figure we'll go a little bit. We're just gonna do 10. This won't be in any specific, I say specific order. Um, the first one is a playoff game against the Bengals. It was a wild card playoff game. What was that? 2016, Tim? That sounds about right, right?
It was the 15 season. It was like January of
So
16.
so 16. It was
Yeah,
16, but it was the 15
right.
season. All right, so this guy named Martavius Bryant used to play wide receiver for the Steelers, and in that game, he made a tremendous catch in the end zone, like rolling over and holding the ball between his legs. And we'll play a quick video of that right now.
From the gun, Roethlisberger in zone bound, and it is a touchdown. Martavis Bryant living up to the challenge.
So, I mean, it was a big play. I think it put the Steelers up 15-0 at that point. And but the Bengals did come back and take the lead 16-15, and probably should have, all intents and purposes, that's a horrible phrase, but should have probably won the game in regulation. But they decided it was more fun to take stupid penalties like hitting Antonio Brown in the head and like yelling at Jerry Porter, who I don't know who Jerry Porter is, but Joey Porter was on the field for no apparent reason. So, and you can relive that in our Joey Porter episode. So, I mean, good times had by all. What a waste of talent, Martavius Bryant. You know, he really like tanked his career because he just like really liked to do marijuana. And I mean, my goodness, if that guy would have came on like 4 or 5 years later, he'd have been fine with like how legal weed is now. But it was the high heady days of 2015, so you weren't allowed to do that stuff back then, Tim.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame because that guy was so talented and he had such a short run with the Steelers. But man, that catch, it's funny in that clip you played, I don't think they even realized it until they showed the replay. He, like you said, he's like, it's really hard to describe. We'll post a link to it on our
It's in between
webpage.
his legs. He like catches it in between his legs as he's doing like a
A
somersault in the
somersault,
air.
yeah, in the
In
air,
the
right?
yeah, no, not on the ground, in the air. Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's crazy, and he hangs on to the ball the whole time. It's just one of the craziest catches you'll ever see in football.
Definitely a amazing feat. And just think that's only an honorable mention. That didn't even make the list, Tim. The a couple other honorable mentions that you can look up: James Harrison's 100-yard interception return. SNL did a great parody of that. We'll have that link for you. The Immaculate Reception, we've covered that in a whole podcast episode. If you want to watch the video to that, and Troy Polamalu had a pretty sweet interception against the Chargers. What year was that? Was that 2008, 2010? Somewhere in there.
It was the year that they won the Super Bowl. It was 2008.
Yeah,
It was that 11-10 game. It was the only game in NFL history that ever ended 11-10. Remember?
Scoregami, huh?
It was a scoregami.
Yeah. So all those will have links to the videos and such. You can check that on our website. Gives you a good reason to go to our website, right, Tim? Tim slaves away at our website. We don't pay him anything. We lock him in the basement with a bunch of computers and make him code all day. Must be what it's like to work for Zuckerberg at Facebook or Meta, huh?
Sure. The opinions expressed by Steve are not necessarily the opinions of Pittsburgh Sports Memories Incorporated. Just in case Meta's and Facebook are listening.
Let's not trash the sponsors, huh? So, a first play on our list, and once again, this is in no specific order. Maybe at the end we'll try and pick the top ones that we like. But so we're rewinding the clock back to 2006, and it's the Backyard Brawl. And if you're new to Pittsburgh sports, Backyard Brawl is not like me and Tim don't go in the backyard and like wrestle around or anything. No, we
do. We just don't have a name for that.
Yeah, we just call that good fun, I guess. I don't know. It's the game between Pitt and West Virginia, and it could be in basketball or football, but it's probably more well known for the football game. So in 2006, Pitt played the 8th ranked WVU at some place called Heinz Field. There's a Pittsburgh sports memory. Remember Heinz Field, Tim?
Yeah, that's an old one.
So I think Pitt was either behind or something. It was a high-scoring first half, and West Virginia punted the ball, and Darrelle Revis comes up with his amazing return where Derek Kinder blocks 2 people, and he just makes about 2 spin moves, runs over Pat McAfee, and scores a great touchdown. So we'll play that video.
And the Panthers let it hit. Picked up on the bounce there by Revis. He's given ground. He gets a block. Turns the corner at the 20. He's at the 25. And he's knocked out of bounds. No, he's coming up the sideline. Here he comes at the 50. And he's going down the field. He's got inside the 25. Still on his feet. Inside the 20. Still on his feet. And he's in the end zone for a touchdown. Darrelle Revis. The Panthers have said all year this guy's going to break one. I can't describe what he did, how many tackles he broke. He got a block to get sprung, but then he did the rest on his own. This guy is just unbelievable.
That was pretty awesome return, and it was against West Virginia. I think they gave them I don't know if that gave them, but they had a 27-24 lead at the half, believe it or not. And I remember that.
Yeah, that did give him the lead right before halftime. And I was at that game, Steve. I think you were too, right?
Yes, I was.
And I just remember, man, when that happened, the whole stadium was just on fire. And that wasn't a season where Pitt fans had a ton to cheer about.
No.
And man, everybody just came alive. I mean, that was the biggest game because it was a backyard brawl. The records didn't matter. That was the biggest game of the season. And for him to break that the way he did, I just remember how just jazzed everybody was in the whole stadium.
Yeah, and I remember as he ran, I saw the block by Kinder because I was kind of on that end of the field, but I could not see him finish the run, and I had to watch on the big screen. But it was just cool. There's 2 or 3 guys down inside the 10. He has to kind of maneuver. It's not like one of those punt returns where they just outrun everybody. He had to run some people over and make a spin move, and it was really an impressive return. And so
it was
it
was he and Kinder both. I mean, I think I know it got nominated. I don't remember if they won. It got nominated.
I think
for one
it
of those
won the
SB
top play of that year.
Yeah, play of the year. But it was both those guys got nominated because Revis made the amazing run, but Kinder he took out 2 guys with 1 block. That's what sprung him.
Yeah, it was pretty impressive. Yeah, that was pretty impressive. The block by Kinder is definitely whatever Derek Kinder's doing now. I don't know, forever in Pitt lore, at least backyard brawl history. So Pitt, with all that momentum, goes into the half and promptly gives up like 24 more points in the second half and loses 45. Like I think it was 45-27 was the final score.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember thinking going into the game, I knew the defense wasn't all that great, and I thought, well, they're gonna have to score some points. And when we got to 27, I said, well, we kind of got a chance, you know. So I figured 28-35 would keep us in the game, but sadly, I was wrong, Tim.
We did an episode on the game that happened the next year, the 13-9 shocker. And we've said it before, Steve, and I can't say it enough times. The reason that's the most shocking event in the history of Pittsburgh sports, literally, is because if you would have watched this game in 2006, the reason that they blew us out in the second half is because we just couldn't keep up with them. Steve
I think in
Slayton, Pat White.
2007, we played them again. I didn't, or no, that wouldn't make sense. No, you're right. Yeah, it had to be the next year.
So just those two, 2005 and 2006, both those games were massacres. Yeah. And I think
2005 was the run faster game.
Yeah, like they interviewed Dave Wanstead coming off the field at halftime. And he's like, "What do you need to do in the second half?" He's like, "Run faster," and that was like he was being sarcastic, but he was right. They couldn't. It was like, imagine just running around, like you said, the backyard. Imagine running around like you and I, old guys now, running around chasing like I don't know, first graders who can run really fast. Like we'd never catch them. And that's the way it looked those 2 years. So for Pitt, and then in 07, West Virginia had the best team that they've ever had. So for Pitt to even keep the score close, much less beat them in Morgantown, like I said, I'll say it a million times, nothing has ever been or will ever be again as shocking as that game.
I like it. I mean, it is one of the more shocking events, the 13-9 game. I remember just because like in the second half of that game, I was like, like you said, they couldn't stop. It was Slayton, the running back. Like Pat White, they kind of kept under control, but like Slayton, they just could not stop him. And I don't know, like they didn't have what's his name yet? Who's the linebacker?
McKillop, yeah.
Yeah. So once they got McKillop, it seemed like they were able to stop that West Virginia offense the next 2 years after that. So, fun game, fun play. Switching to NFL football, a rivalry game nonetheless, but it would be Steelers Browns in 1995, and I know Tim went to this game. So the Browns and Steelers meet in Three River Stadium on a Monday night with the Bills, Cowher and Belichick at head coach, respectively, for each their teams. And it's an incredible play, and I think they took the lead on this. I think was it early? This was early in the game.
Yeah, it was 7-0 or 0-0 when this play happened.
Yeah, when this. So Cordell basically runs like the whole length of the field both ways and ends up throwing a touchdown pass to Ernie Mills. It's one of the more unbelievable plays in NFL history. Like, I can't believe this happened. Like, he didn't get tackled or something. Like, and it looked like something that would happen in like college or high school or backyard football or something.
Yeah, plays like this didn't happen in the NFL. And I think this was the first time that they even had Stewart doing this kind of stuff.
Yeah,
well, here goes Cordell Stewart, a quarterback again. In the shotgun, and O'Donnell is the wide receiver to the left. Rolling right to the short side of the field, looking back the other way. He's going to get in. Hello. Flipping it. All right. Touchdown, Ernie Mills. Oh, now that's great stuff. That's great stuff.
That was pretty cool. Was that Dan Deerdorf on Monday Night Football?
Dan Deerdorf and Frank Gifford and Al Michaels.
Wow. Boy, that was a long time ago.
Yes, it was.
You were at this game. This was the year that Cleveland. I mean, I have in the aftermath. The Steelers end up going to Super Bowl 30, which they don't win, but the Browns have a much worse fate awaiting them, whereas they end up in Baltimore, and Cleveland doesn't have a team for like 5 years or 4 years. Tim, you went to this game. You wore your little armband, didn't you? The Cleveland.
Yeah.
Do you still have the Cleveland armband
I
anymore?
actually still have it, and my
Nice.
little sign, my little Save the Browns sign that the Browns fans all handed out to us as we walked in. It wasn't, I think so. Yeah, they Modell had made that shocking announcement he was going to move the Browns. Steeler
And
fans
they
were
went in the tank
supportive.
that year. Yeah.
Yeah, and Steeler fans were supportive. Wore some armbands and held up signs, but not, once the game started, it was like, okay, let's beat these guys. And it was funny too that, Art Modell, we talked about this in a previous episode. He had all these miserable trips to Pittsburgh. He even said there's a great quote where he basically says, like, it was brutal coming there every year because we just always found different ways to lose. And it's so appropriate that this was his last ever visit to Pittsburgh as owner of the Browns. And the one of the big play that beats him is this rookie Cordell Stewart, who was, playing all these different positions, lining up at quarterback and running this backyard play, like you said.
And it's just crazy that, yeah. And fun fact on the coaching staff was Kirk Ferentz, who's the coach of Iowa, and Jim Bates, who was a longtime defensive coordinator, and I think Eric Mangini was also on that staff. So there were a lot of guys that would go on to have some success.
Wasn't Nick Saban too?
That was the year before. I thought
Okay.
Nick Saban was on this, but he'd actually gone to Michigan State that year.
But
in '94, Nick Saban was on that staff too.
Man.
So, I mean, the Browns have not even. I mean, when's the last time the Browns have made the AFC Championship game? The drive or the fumble?
1989. It's the same year. It's the same
Is that
answer.
the fumble?
No. So the drive was 86. The fumble was 87. 89 was just the Broncos beat them by like 20 points.
Just for good measure.
There was no like fun, name to that game. Like Browns lose by 20. But the answer to the trivia question of when the Browns last made the AFC Championship game is also the answer to the trivia question. When was the last time the Browns won the division? They literally have not won the division since 1989 at the time of this recording, which is the longest drought in the NFL.
Crazy.
And that includes a bunch of teams that didn't exist in 1989.
I mean, they have made the Super Bowl. Neither has Detroit or Houston or Jacksonville. So, I mean, I don't know what to say about Cleveland.
I
think
say
Juju said it. Was it Juju who said it best? Browns be Browns.
Browns be Browns.
Yeah. It was a shame. So sticking with the Cordell theme, we're gonna play another game from Cordell. This is later in his career, 2000. And this is the last season at Three River Stadium, right? Yes. This is the second to last home game, I do believe.
Yep.
At Three River Stadium. And Cordell early in the game has a fumble, but then he picks it up and he runs for a first down. It's a big play in the game, and I think it kind of builds Cordell's confidence up. And the Steelers actually end up winning this game. This is the one with the Mark Bruner, like, carries like two Raiders into the end zone play, and this is a fun game. This is like Rich Gannon and who is it? Chucky, what's his name?
Gruden
arguing over fourth down or not.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Or we'll play the play.
Deploying four receivers. Stewart with Russell coming up the middle. Pocket crumbles, fumble, reeled in by Stewart. Gets away from Beekert, running up with the block from Huntley. Oh my gosh, what a run! Houdini is alive, an 18-yard run.
That's amazing. That's an amazing run. I think if it wasn't on AstroTurf, that ball probably doesn't bounce back to him like that. But good for him. Boy, could you imagine him playing in the league today, Tim? He would probably be like a top 10 quarterback easily.
Yeah.
He was almost there last time. I mean, and like you couldn't hit him. Like you couldn't now. Like nobody could hit him. And he's a big guy too. He's not like Lamar Jackson, like he's kind of smaller or anything. Like Cordell's kind of big. Like That would have been interesting to see him play 10 or 15 years later.
Yeah, yeah. Cordell really ushered in kind of a new era of where those kinds of quarterbacks could now have an NFL career. But unfortunately, Cordell could get you to a big game. He couldn't really win you a big game. And I don't know that that's really changed. That part really hasn't changed a whole lot, Steve. I mean, how many
Well,
Super Bowls has
yeah.
Lamar Jackson won? How many Super Bowls has RG3 or Michael Vick or I don't know, name that Colin Kaepernick, all those guys.
Well, I think there's a difference between good and great, and a lot of those guys check the good box, but not the great box.
Yeah, that's fair.
Whereas like Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, who else?
Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah,
He
Ben
was pretty good.
Roethlisberger for sure. Like Phillip Rivers, would be another maybe good, not great guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
So, in the aftermath, Cordell has one more good year, but never reaches the Super Bowl, like we said. Actually, it's kind of weird that Gruden gets traded. A coach, when's the last time that happened? Gets traded to Tampa and wins a Super Bowl in Tampa before Bill Cowher, like a couple years.
Yeah.
But then John Gruden remembered he was John Gruden, and he gets himself kicked out of the league with some apparently very raunchy emails to people at the Washington organization.
Oops.
Oops is right. How to get yourself kicked out of the league. So moving to hockey, and some guy named Mario Lemieux. You ever heard of him, Tim?
We could have made a whole amazing play episode with just Mario Lemieux.
Well, the
honestly.
5 goals 5 different ways would have been.
Yeah, or the one they made the statue out of, that goal.
Yeah.
The Richie Pilons, where he split the two defensemen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Richie Pilon statue.
It's not the Mario statue, it's the Richie Pilons. So in 1991, the Penguins are in the Stanley Cup final, Tim. And I think they are down 1 game to none, right? Yes.
Correct.
So that's not good. You don't want to go down 2 games to none, especially since both the first 2 games were on home ice. But losing first games in a series is like a Penguins tradition. So why break with tradition, right, Tim?
Yeah.
But in the second game, I think they were. Were they leading at this point?
Yes.
They might. And yes, the Penguins are leading 2-1, but they were down 1-0 in the series. And Mario decides that this is one of those. Remember, I said good and great. This is where Mario is great, and other players are just kind of good, because there's a lot of other good players on this ice, but Mario's just the greatest. He actually skates the length of the ice from his own defensive zone and splits both defensemen for the North Stars and beats, was it Casey?
John Casey.
Yeah, John Casey, the goaltender. We'll play this play for you. It's a good Mike Lang call.
Here's Lemieux. The center penalty coming up. Look at Lemieux. Oh, my heavens. What a goal. What a move. Lemieux. Oh, baby.
Well, my apologies. That wasn't the Mike Lang call, but he gives him a good, he shoots and scores. He painted Casey like a Reddit mule. That's my best Mike Lang impression.
There you go.
But yeah, you can definitely watch the Mike Lang audio of that. It's a little more fun, but just like I described it, I think it kind of turned the tables of that series towards the Penguins' favor. It's like whenever you see it's Stanley Cup final time, and they show little highlights of it starts in black and white, and then moves forward, that's one of the little highlights they show. So it's become an iconic play in NHL history.
Yeah, definitely iconic. And it was kind of the moment where you're obviously the series wasn't over, but you were kind of okay, I think the Penguins are going to win this, because I know it was only game 2 and they still hadn't officially won a game in the series, but man, he just took over like he always did back then. And John Casey,
He's a pretty good goalie.
He was, yeah. I mean, that Minnesota team
I don't think
was in the
they were
regular
hot.
season, they were an under 500 team. They literally were under 500, and they made this run through the playoffs because they had this great goaltender, John Casey, who was on fire. And you've seen that so many times in NHL history with if a goalie really gets on fire, he will carry a team all the way to the cup. But he had no answer for Mario.
Yeah, great. And so the aftermath was the Penguins win their cup. I think what they won 7-0 in Game 6.
8.
It was
8 to nothing. Yep.
I know Jimmy Pack scored. So when Jimmy Pack's scoring goals, you're on your way to victory.
You would spend more time listing the guys that scored than the guys. You'd rather just list the guys that didn't score in that game. There's only like 4 guys on the roster that didn't score.
Badger Bob's the coach. Unfortunately, he doesn't make it to the next season, but it's a great memory. The Penguins finally break through, kind of like this, sad sack, franchise that it had been since 1968. Finally wins a cup, and happy days are here finally for the good old Penguins. And unfortunately for the North Stars, they moved to Dallas, which I mean that makes perfect sense. North Stars in Dallas. But now they're just the Dallas Stars, which makes more sense because Texas Lone Star State, I guess.
Yeah.
So I don't have they won a cup since then? I don't think so.
Yeah, they when
Oh,
Brett
they did?
Hall. Remember Brett Hall against Buffalo?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they kicked
Yeah.
it in,
Yep.
or like didn't
Yeah.
kick it in. Yeah, that was a crazy game. Well, sticking with like games that ended like rather crazily, we're sticking with hockey, and it's Jaromir Jagr versus the Blackhawks in 1992. This was Game 1, I do believe, right? Yes, one of the rare times the Penguins won Game 1 in a series. But as is Penguin tradition, they were down 4-1 in the game. See, they had to make it. They are so used to losing Game 1s, they had to really go down big against. I think it was Eddie Belfour was in net for the good old Blackhawks there. Jagr was 18. Was he 18, 19? He was not very old and did not speak much English at that point in his career. So that he goes into the boards in the Blackhawk zone, and I think it was late in the game, but it wasn't under a minute or anything. And he basically beats like 3 Blackhawks and then shoots a backhand shot that somehow gets in the net through Belfour. I've watched this 100 times. I do not know how this puck went in the net, but we'll play it for you here.
Puck to the corner and grabbed quickly by Kuchera. Couldn't get it out. It's still in there. Jagr intercepted. Hangs on to it. Made a good move. Another good move. He's in. Scores. What a goal. Jagr ties it for Pittsburgh.
So that was the game. That was the tie goal. So it was 4-4. And I think the Blackhawks ended up taking a penalty with like 20 seconds left. And then Mario scores on an empty net after Larry Murphy shoots it off of Eddie Belfour. That was kind of the end of the Blackhawks in that series. You talk about like that they gave it everything they got and they just had no answer for the Penguins. The Penguins were really good. The Blackhawks were another team like the North Stars the year before. They had been on kind of a hot streak and been really good. And they had 2 really good goaltenders. They had Hossack and Belfour. And the Penguins just totally smoked them both.
That Jagr goal is like one of those ones that you would show if you were teaching youth hockey. You would show the kids never ever attempt something like this. Like he's just like pass, do something other than try to like single-handedly take on the entire Blackhawk team, and then shoot a wayward backhanded puck at the net. Like
Did that go through his legs? I can never tell. If
like you said, you have to watch it like 6 times because each time you're like, there's no way that's going to go through that guy's legs. No, okay, well, you got to pass that defense, but there's no way he's going to get past the second defenseman. Okay, there's no way he's going to get past the goaltender. It's really one of those things you just have to watch over and over again because it's that unbelievable.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's just, and it was the game tying, which was important, and then of course Mario finished them off later, and that was literally the end of the Blackhawks in that series. I think the Penguins, even in Game 4 when they won on the road, I mean Hossack made some saves and kept them in it, but it was still kind of. I just remember it wasn't that close of a game.
Yeah,
So
Mario called it. They interviewed Mario after the game, and he called it the greatest goal he's ever seen. So that's high praise coming from Mario Lemieux.
yeah, we have an interview of them, and hey, let me see if we can play it here. See what happens.
I got lucky again. I beat a couple of defensemen. I shoot in, and one of my backhands come in.
Oh, that was probably the greatest goal I ever seen. You know, I've scored a lot of big goals, but one down and picked up the puck, beat 3-4 guys, and he's got such great balance. Can beat a guy one-on-one at will, and he's very strong with his upper body, and that was a great goal.
That's great. Like a very young Yager. The mullet is not fully in bloom yet, but the accent's definitely there. And Mario, I think it was a little wry smile there when he said one of the greatest goals I've ever seen. So
yeah.
The next one up, we're gonna switch to Pitt basketball because why not? There aren't a lot of great things that have happened to Pitt basketball over the year. I guess there were later, but this was back in the what would you say, late 80s? Yeah, late 80s.
It was 88, I think.
Yeah. And they were playing in the field house. This is pre-Peterson Event Center. And Jerome Lane sends it in and he breaks a backboard. And what makes it really incredible is because I don't remember a lot of college players breaking backboards back then. I think it happened in the NBA here and there, but not really in college. And it really became like an ESPN signature moment. Bill Rafferty makes the iconic "Send it in, Jerome." So we'll listen to that. It's a really good call by Bill Rafferty and a fun play to watch and listen to, actually.
Burton's a little trouble. Now they loop it in the right, and nobody's home. Picked off by Miller. Goes ahead. Lane's on the other wing. He finds.
Send it in, Jerome!
No, he didn't hang on the rim. It's just a big man.
My goodness.
Hold on at home. Here we go again.
That is just really cool. And I like one of the Pitt cheerleaders who watched the video doesn't know what to cheer. Like, she's like, do I cheer for this? Do I not? The one's going nuts. She's like jumping up and down. She's like, yay. And the other one's like, okay. We got to replace the backboard now. I heard they added that to his student account. He had to pay for the backboard to be replaced.
Right.
Sorry, Mr. Lane. That's going to be $500. But fun fact: Sean Miller, who had the assist on this play, and Jerome Lane actually went on to have a 4-year NBA career with Denver, Indiana, Milwaukee, and Cleveland. Sean Miller ended up going to head coach at Arizona, and then got himself in some trouble with the NCAA. And had to go back to Xavier. He had been at Xavier before Arizona, had a lot of success there. Now he's currently still the head coach of Xavier. Just a fun play, and like I think the send it in Jerome, like Bill Rafferty makes that play as much as the play. Just what a great reaction and great call by Bill Rafferty.
Yeah, that's one of those things that's been replayed 1,000 times in the last 30 plus years since it happened. And is it not the most Pitt thing ever that he breaks the backboard, there's glass laying everywhere on the court, and they strike up the Pitt fight song? It's like, it's literally like the greatest thing that's ever happened in Pitt basketball history up to that point. It's
Well, what's funny is I played rec league basketball in my neighborhood back then, and my coach for my rec league team was at that game, and I remember I think it was next practice. He brought in he had a piece of the backboard, just like a little piece, like a little
Oh, wow.
shard with the ticket. I wonder if Mr. Malyan still has that. I mean, it's a pretty cool keepsake. You know?
That would be.
Yeah. So, sticking with the theme of Pitt is it. Larry Fitzgerald. He's a pretty good receiver, not so much linebacker, huh, Tim?
That's correct.
Yeah. So Larry Fitzgerald was a freshman, and they in 2000. What would this be? 2002. They were in something called the Insight.com Bowl. Do you have any idea what Insight.com does?
I do not, Steve. What do they do?
No clue either.
Oh, I thought you were going to answer
They're
that
very
question
they're very
first.
insightful, Tim.
I can just
You
hear
thought
the
I
sound.
had the answer. I don't have to. I don't know.
I can just
They're probably not even around anymore.
I can just hear the sound now of, all the people listening to this pausing it so that they can, get out their phones and look up insight.com because it's that fascinating.
Yeah. So if you know what Insight.com does, you're a smarter person than I. I don't think it even matters. But so Pitt is playing Oregon State in this game in 2002, and early in the game, Rod Rutherford drops back the pass, releases one like 30 yards down the field, and Larry Fitzgerald jumps from like the 5 and catches this ball and ends up in the end zone. It's a touchdown. And we'll play this one. It's pretty cool.
And the blitz of Rutherford picked up nicely. Has time to fire one deep. Fitzgerald open. A diving catch for a touchdown. Are you kidding me?
There he is, folks. That's the guy.
That is a true freshman.
Look at this, folks.
Oh.
That is a fantastic football catch. That's Jerry Rice reincarnated.
That's just a great play, and I love Bill Curry was great in that game. He just started calling him like Jerry Rice and everything, and it's just an amazing play. And I remember the next season because they ended up winning that bowl game, and like they had such high hopes going to the next season. And remember they had Larry Fitzgerald like paused in midair, like on a picture on the side of a bus, like when they were advertising senior season tickets.
Mhm.
It was like season ticket plans take off soon or something. It was just a great ad. Whoever thought up that idea. And it was just a great play. And I mean, the aftermath, let's see. Well, Pitt beats Oregon State, but they kind of languish in mediocrity for years to come. Oregon State is playing football somewhere. Not sure where or who or how, but apparently it's them and Washington State in the Pac-2. There's a 2-team conference, Tim. What a concept.
Don't get me started.
They had to go to court to kick everybody else out of like conference making decisions. Like what does it matter at that point? It's like you're the last 2 people at the party. You just got stuck with the check. Yeah, like good job. But it's the most ridiculous thing. So I mean, I guess whoever wins that game can say, "Yay, we won the Pac."
The Pac-2 championship game consisting of those 2 teams. So Steve, you mentioned Bill Curry with that Jerry Rice quote. How prophetic was that? Because literally Larry Fitzgerald goes on to become the number 2 all-time leader in NFL history in receptions, right behind Jerry Rice. Like literally, that's the top 2 receivers in NFL history in terms of receptions is Jerry Rice and Larry Fitzgerald. And here he's calling him Jerry Rice his freshman year at college. How about that?
Yeah, he was really good. He got better as the season went on.
Yeah.
Like I think that was the year they lost to Nebraska. Did they lose Nebraska? Was that this or was
No, that was the year they lost to Texas A&M on the swinging gate. Yeah.
Yeah, because he had like 10 catches that
Yeah,
game.
that was his coming out game because I remember you and I were both at that game and I remember like who's number 1? He's good.
Yeah. Yeah, it was great to watch him, fun to watch. Classy guy. Is he in the College Football Hall of Fame yet? Maybe just because he didn't play long enough. He'll definitely be in the NFL Hall of Fame.
For sure.
And I know he only So, I mean, that's only a matter of time. He hasn't gone in yet. So, a couple more years, Larry will be in. And they just retired his number, I think, at Pitt this last season, I do believe. So, Larry's racking up some awards there. Had a great year. That 2008 season almost cost the Steelers their 6th Super Bowl. Wish he would have won a Super Bowl, just not against the Steelers. Would have been nice. But him and Kurt Warner had an unbelievable playoff run.
Yep.
Boy, if it would have been anybody but the Steelers, I would have been heartbroken to watch them lose.
Yeah, and one final footnote for this one, Steve. Insight Enterprises is a global technology company that focuses on B2B and IT for enterprises, and they have offices in 19 countries.
Wow, they're still around.
So they're
I
still
don't think
around.
they sponsor any bowls, though. Still.
Yeah, that's a shame because the Insight.com bowl was epic. I mean, think about how many amazing memories.
Well, there's
we could just do a whole episode, Steve, of Insight.com bowl memories, right?
Yeah,
that
it's
would
up
get
there with the Cotton Bowl and the Rose Bowl and the Sugar Bowl.
Those ones were okay, but Insight.com, I mean, oof.
What is business to business? I mean, what business to what are they? The Yellow Pages? What are they talking about? What a bunch of corporate nonsense. So moving away from corporate nonsense and back to sports. Turner Ward. Does anybody remember that guy? I know Tim does.
Yeah, one of the many players on the late 90s, early 2000s Pirates that I remember how, if you thought the Insight.com bowl had a lot of great memories, the late 90s Pirates, oh man.
Well, even in this highlight, so this is May 3rd, 1998 against the Dodgers. Mike Piazza, of all people, hits a fly ball to, I'll say, right center-ish. And Turner Ward literally runs through a wall, the Three River Stadium wall. It wasn't the door. I think it was just part of the wall. And he, ran into it, broke the wall. I think he hurt his shoulder. And the problem was the guy on third still scored because I guess Ward couldn't throw the ball back in. And here we'll play the audio of that.
2 homers in as many days, 5 on the season, and there's a drive toward right field. Turner Ward going over, makes a great diving catch, and we lost Turner Ward. He goes up and through the wall apparently. Run scores on the sacrifice fly, and Ward appears hurt, and obviously, because as we said, we lost him.
That was just unbelievable. He broke the wall. He pulled a Bump Bailey from the Natural, who ran through the wall.
Bump Bailey didn't survive that though. So fortunately Turner Ward did. And he did break it. You can't see it on the podcast, but if
he
you
did
go
something to his shoulder or something.
Yeah, if you go look at the play, you'll see that it actually cracks. The ball, you can see the part that's not padded on the bottom, you can see it's all cracked. So he literally broke through the outfield wall. And the worst part about it was a sac fly, like you said. So the Dodgers still scored a run. There was no chance of obviously throwing the guy out from behind the wall. So, but he got Piazza out, so there was that.
Yeah, in typical Pirates fashion, they lost the game 10-5 to the Dodgers. I don't think this was the Freak Show Pirates, was it?
No, that was the year before.
So they're just another. And Jermaine Allensworth makes an appearance from center field, helping Turner Ward out of the whatever, oblivion he went into behind the right field fence.
Jermaine Allensworth was the guy we talked about in that Freak Show episode who they did. You mentioned Saturday Night Live earlier. They did a Saturday Night Live sketch about
I don't know who I am. Or
Jermaine Allensworth. It was Tracy Morgan played Jermaine Allensworth. That's about the only thing I remember about that guy.
I can't do a Tracy Morgan. I don't know who I am. I don't know. I can't do Tracy Morgan. Doing Jermaine Allensworth.
Yeah.
That's 3 levels of insanity there.
You need a lot of comedic practice to nail that one.
Yeah. But yeah, that's a fun one. He ran through the wall. At least he lived to tell the tale. And the aftermath was, hey, the Pirates still sucked for like another 10 years. Turner Ward went on to play for the Diamondbacks and Phillies, and then he went into coaching, and now he's the St. Louis Cardinals hitting coach. So,
Oh, nice. Does he teach them how not to run through the wall?
Yeah. No clue where Jermaine Allensworth is, although I'm pretty sure Tracy Morgan is still on tour somewhere. We just have Ben Roethlisberger evading defenders play. There's like about 500 of these plays, so you could like probably pick a better one, but this is probably one of the more influential ones. I remember there was one in the Super Bowl 43 where he ran around and threw to Heath Miller for a first down, but he did that like 10 other times too in just regular season games. There's so many to pick from him here, Tim. We could literally do a whole podcast just on this topic.
You're right.
So what makes it incredible is Ben scrambles to the left and then he throws back to the right. Like I always like kind of like you're never supposed to throw back to the middle of the field. Like now people do it like Brett Favre or Patrick Mahomes. Although Patrick Mahomes seems to get away with it more than Brett Favre ever did. But you know, it ends up being a touchdown where Santonio Holmes catches the ball in the end zone. Hey, sound familiar? A little foreshadowing. He catches it right in the front of the end zone. This game is in Baltimore, and it's 2008. And I think he catches it, and you could never tell if it's in or out or what it was. I don't know, Tim. I could never tell. But they called it in, so... Or actually, they called it at the 1 first, and then I think replay overturned it to call him in.
Correct.
So here we'll play that.
Roethlisberger, first option, shut down. Looking for a second, a third option. Now throws it. Man's there. Is he in the end zone? Is he in or outside? They're going to mark him outside.
After reviewing the play, the receiver had 2 feet down in the end zone with possession of the ball. We have a touchdown.
It's a touchdown for Pittsburgh.
That's a crazy play. I don't know if he scored or not on that one. I think we went over it in another podcast because I remember talking about this play before. Did they win the division? This won them the division, didn't it?
Yeah, it was a huge play because the AFC Championship game that's the same 2 teams.
Yeah.
And that game's in Pittsburgh
Pittsburgh
because of that throw that you just heard right there. And like you said, Ben just running around, buying time, shaking off defenders. Like you said, he did that so many times, but that was probably, what did you say, Steve? The most influential or like the most, had the most impact. So
yeah, that's a good word. Yeah, definitely the most impact for that one. So, good for Ben. The aftermath was the Steelers win the division and go on to win the Super Bowl, like you said, beating the Ravens again in the championship game on a Paul Mullen interception. The Ravens had to wait a couple more years till they finally got their Super Bowl win, but so it kind of worked out for everybody in the end. Sticking with Steelers in the Super Bowl, that would be Lynn Swann Super Bowl X against the Cowboys. That would be Super Bowl 10 to everybody that's not Roman. And the background is the Steelers are in the Super Bowl for the 2nd straight year. Wow, look at this upstart franchise who stunk for so many years. Now in the Super Bowl every year, Tim. What's up with them? And so they're looking to go back to back. And this was actually the Cowboys' 3rd Super Bowl appearance. But they had won Super Bowl 6 and Super Bowl 5.
They lost Super Bowl 5.
It's like, did I say win? I meant lost. Yeah, that was the one to the Colts, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yes.
Jim O'Brien kicked a field goal in the final seconds to beat them.
Yeah, that was a sloppy Super Bowl too.
It was.
Yeah, but so did the Cowboys still have the can't win the big one kind of? Like they had that for a while, Tom Landry and them. I don't know. Maybe they'd shaken it by then because they had won a Super Bowl. So. But be that as may, this is about Lynn Swann. and he makes like this awesome catch. And there's one they call like NFL Films calls one the levitating leap, where he leaps up and the ball bounces in the air, and he actually, as he's leaping, he catches the ball. And there's another one they call the kangaroo catch, and that was on the sidelines, and he kind of like jumps right on the sideline and further into the field of play and catches the ball. And both those catches are pretty good, but here we'll play this clip of that.
Bradshaw is deep, and they're firing downfield. Swan going after covered, and it's juggled. Swan catches it on a circus catch inside the Dallas 45-yard line, gets up and goes inside the 40, down to the 37-yard line, had a defensive player right on his back in Mark Washington.
How about that? That's two sensational catches in this ball game by a leaping Lynn Swan, the guy who was put out of the Oakland Raiders playoff game with the concussion when they played the bongo drums on his head. There were thoughts that he might hear footsteps today. He's been great.
Lynn Swan was great in that game. And like Myron obviously mentioning, I guess this was after the kangaroo catch game, or was it before the second catch? Or
yeah, he made that one along the sidelines, and then he made one later in the fourth quarter for a touchdown. But what Byron was talking about was the AFC Championship game. He got knocked out of that game, I think, by Jack Tatum. And so there were some questions about could he even play? And then if he was going to play, I guess it's what Myron was alluding to there. Is he going to be like gun shy because he's, hearing footsteps kind of thing? And obviously he was fine.
Obviously. And to his credit, he became NFL. He became Super Bowl MVP for Super Bowl 10. So,
how many times did they play that clip over the years? I mean,
it's been a lot.
But
that's probably one of the catches that got him into the Hall of Fame.
Probably,
honestly.
Well, I always thought it was hypocritical. Whenever, there was that debate for a long time: should he or shouldn't he be in the Hall of Fame? And they finally elected him. But I always thought it was so hypocritical. It's like, well, he doesn't have the numbers, or he doesn't have this. But then they're always showing his catches over and over again. It's like, well, what then, how can you say he's not one of the great players of all time when you're constantly showing his highlights? So
it was named the 5th greatest catch in NFL history by the NFL Network. It's very graceful, like Swan. It kind of matched his name. He I think he actually trained in ballet, believe it or not, even when he was still in the NFL, just like wasn't when he was a little kid. So he had to work on his footwork there. So the aftermath, the Steelers beat the Cry Boys, and then they beat them again in Super Bowl 13, and they prove it wasn't a fluke, and the Cowboys still cry about it to this day, which is just great that them and the Raiders can't get over it. But Steelers have a dynasty of the 70s, and the Cowboys just have a pretty good team. So,
yep.
Moving back to hockey, Mario scoring from the faceoff. How would you score from a faceoff, Tim? It sounds impossible. Well, apparently Mario had been trying it for years, and he just thought he needed a lucky bounce, and he got that lucky bounce against the game in Buffalo during the 2002-2003 season. He had actually had a running bet with radio host Mark Madden. Madden said he couldn't do it, and originally the bet was supposed to be for $66, but then when Mario did it, before that, they upped the bet to $6,600, and Mark donated, to his word, donated $6,000 to the Mario Lemieux Foundation. So here we'll play the clip of that.
They're right in the face-off. Lemieux has scored against Toronto. The Penguins have a 3-2 lead. Do you believe it? The Pittsburgh Penguins have the lead. Oh, Michael motorcycle.
That was kind of a forgettable season for the Penguins.
Yeah, that was a lot of forgettable seasons around that time, 2003. And that was the end of his career, and he was playing with nobodies because the Penguins had to trade away all their good players. And
yeah, they had traded Kovalev back to the Rangers.
Yeah.
And Mark Straka got injured.
Yager had been traded that offseason. So it was, it kind of stunk to watch Mario have to finish his career out like that. But man, it's like even that late in his career playing on a garbage team, he's still able to make these plays. Like we said earlier, we could just do a whole podcast on amazing Mario goals.
That's for sure. I mean, that was a lot of fun, and the team did start rebuilding because I think they drafted Fleury that off season, so the rebuild begins. And then the lockout, after the lockout, they started it took them another year, but then they started the rebuild in earnest. So that's our list. That's the list. What would be your favorite one on the list here, Tim?
Oh boy, that's a tough question. I might put the Darrelle Revis punt return. Like I said, just being there, the energy in the stadium, the fact that you didn't have a lot to cheer for at that point, and it's just one of those plays that like you still remember all these years later. And when you're just thinking of great plays, that one always comes to mind. So I'd probably do that one.
That's a good one. Always like the Larry catch, even though I actually did not see the Larry catch happen live. I was in the bathroom. So I missed
Nice.
I pulled a Art Rooney. I missed the play. But that's probably one of my favorite catches of all time. That's a fun one. Although the Ben running around and beating the Ravens one is probably my favorite. So.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
Yeah, if you have any comments, check us out on Facebook. Tell us where we went wrong. Tell what your favorite play out of these assorted plays are. But it's just nice that we have this podcast and everybody tuning in and downloading. And thank you for your guy supporting us all this time. And we'll catch you next time on Pittsburgh Sports Memories.
I love the smell of this microphone.